join us this Thursday afternoon, morning. And we have people all across the country, so depending on where you are joining us from. But we're so excited to share the next hour with you all. And I know folks have been sitting patiently in our waiting room, and so thank you for hanging tight there. And I know folks will continue to trickle in, but we have a full agenda, so I wanted to go ahead and get us started. But we're thrilled to have the chance to discuss some best practices for pro bono consulting and provide some tips to set yourself up for successful capacity building partnerships. And we hope that this will be an opportunity for us to share a little bit about our wealth of knowledge of kind of facilitating this kind of volunteering over the years as leaders in the pro bono field, and also provide a little bit of space for connection, since I bet everyone in the room is kind of coming for similar reasons. You're interested in learning more. You're also maybe interested in giving back using your professional skills that you've learned, worked so hard to hone. So we're excited to have you all here, and hopefully we can act on this kind of common motivation for you all. So I'll share our agenda in a minute, but before we get too far, I wanted to mention just some logistics at the top to keep in mind as we continue. I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Kristen Maiku. So you'll see her in the chat here and in the presenters up at the top, and Kristen will be supporting me kind of behind the scenes. Kristen is an integral part to making these events happen. So I wanted to shout her out at the top here and thank her for her support. Today's event is webinar style, so that means you don't have to worry about coming off mute or worry about your camera. We'll handle the presentation, and you'll be able to utilize the chat or also submit questions via the chat there. You can kind of put them in throughout, and we'll have some time at the end. Kristen will also be paying close attention to those so we can keep track of those comments. She'll also share some resources where applicable, so keep an eye out for chat there. And we've enabled the closed captions, so subtitles are available. You can turn these off or on using the settings icon, the little gear icon that should be above your chat box. The event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about jotting down notes, and we'll also make sure to share our PowerPoint and the recording and some follow-up resources after the event. So please feel free to ask questions throughout, but as I mentioned, we'll also build in some time at the end dedicated for these questions in case we don't address them directly in the presentation. I know there were a few questions that were submitted in the registration, so thank you for sending those in, and we'll do our best to address those and any others that come up in our conversation. There's no question that's too small, so ask away. This is your experience, and we're happy to kind of support you through this journey and want to make sure you feel like you have everything you need. So don't hesitate to drop in any questions or make use of that chat. Speaking of chat, let's dig into some introductions. So as I mentioned previously, this can be a great space for community and to connect with other fellow volunteer professionals. So we'd love to hear who's in the room, and I'll invite you to go ahead and drop your name, where you're joining us from, and a little bit about your professional background, maybe even a note about what piqued your interest in joining today's event in the chat. You're also welcome to share your LinkedIn, since this can, again, be a great space to do a little networking or see who else is also similarly involved in this kind of volunteering. And I'll get us started. So my name is Grace Litsu. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based in the Chicago area. And we recently had snow over the weekend, so I know the northern Midwesterners in the room can relate to this change of weather. There was a short snow, and now it's all of a sudden 60 again. So a little bit of whiplash there, but definitely savoring some of the last bits of fall. And at Taproot, I'm a manager on our pro bono services team, and my role involves all things volunteer community. So this includes making sure you all feel supported, and Taproot is creating the best environment possible to bring pro bono to our community of nonprofits. And I'm always available to listen, assist, provide suggestions, support anything you need. And my favorite part of this job is really getting to see the compassion and connection that comes from pro bono partnerships. And I'm really excited to see how you all will contribute to this. And if you've created an account, you've probably already gotten some emails from me. So it's nice to have you in the room, and my door is always open. So I'm excited to get to know you all. And thanks to those who have started to drop in their introductions in the chat. I'm a huge fan of inactive chat, so keep it coming. All right, so now that those introductions are flowing, I wanted to take a second to review the flow of our conversation for the day. For those in the room who are new to Taproot, we want to always start by just giving a brief overview of who Taproot is. And why we do what we do. Then we'll get into the heart of our conversation today, which is to share best practices for pro bono consulting. And we'll do this in two ways. We'll start first with some general tips for working with nonprofits and making sure you've set up the foundation of trust and transparency to make sure your partnerships are ready for a successful and sustainable delivery. And then I'll dive into the kind of pro bono process on Taproot Plus and focus on some specific areas and phases to pay attention to during your kind of project management, and share some best practices for each of those to make sure those phases go smoothly. And as I mentioned at the top, we'll have space at the end to answer questions, but don't hesitate to answer them throughout, or to ask them throughout, sorry. Okay, so as promised, we wanted to start by providing some greater context into our organization as a whole. As you may know, Taproot is a nonprofit ourselves, and we are a nonprofit that exists to support our fellow nonprofits. So Taproot was founded in 2001 on this kind of knowledge that there's a resource gap in the social sector, and organizations who have the solutions may very well have the solutions to our world's most pressing challenges often don't have the financial means or staff capacity to carry out their mission to the fullest of extent. And so we kind of were born to democratize this access to nonprofits, regardless of their mission area, budget size, years of operation, et cetera, and make sure that they have what they need to carry out their mission. And to do so, our work is focused on facilitating and expanding the pro bono movement to mobilize professionals such as yourselves to utilize their skills for good. And you might be most familiar with pro bono from the legal field. This is where pro bono has a really well-established presence. And we believe that in order for all nonprofits to have access to the support they need, we can't stop at legal, and all professionals have unique talents to offer, and we want to lean into this kind of collective action to really make our world a better place. And I really get excited by this mission, this movement, the work that we're all doing together, and so I'm thrilled to now have you all as a part of achieving this vision. Okay, now we're gonna move into kind of the heart of our conversation now that we're all on the same page with why Taproot is doing the work we're doing. So let's dig into some tips for pro bono partnerships. Starting with our first tip to remember here, we always like to kind of bring in this kind of collective action, mutual learning piece. So our first tip is you and the nonprofit both bring expertise to the partnership. So hopefully you kind of are sensing a little bit of a theme with pro bono as truly being a partnership. This is one of my favorite parts of pro bono consulting, and our volunteers often report this to be both the most surprising and most impactful part of donating their professional skills. While there's no doubt that you bring incredibly valuable technical expertise, your own best practices, tools, and strategies that your nonprofit partner might not have access to within their own staff, board, or network. There's also so much that can be learned from your nonprofit partner as well. They know their community and the social issue that they're kind of trying to address. And this partnership can be a great way to learn more the innovative, creative ways nonprofits are addressing challenges to make our world a little more equitable. And many nonprofits in our Taproot network are founded by people with a personal connection to the issue they're addressing in their organization, and are often happy to share their stories and talk about what inspired them to do the work that they do. So this is a level of expertise that might be different from yours, and add a great amount to your partnership. So I'd really encourage you to consider your relationship as equals, and remember that the goal is to complement each other. Yeah, as we alluded to the top, trust and connection are the kind of crucial building blocks to successful pro bono. So really keeping in mind that you're both bringing something to the table can be really helpful. Moving to our second tip here is to listen and seek understanding before offering solutions. And this one might seem like a little bit of a no-brainer, but I know sometimes I feel it in myself that it's hard to resist that urge to jump into problem-solving mode. We're really hardwired to want to resolve uncertainty. And if you're used to working in, a fast-paced, high-pressure work environment, quick decisions often become the natural priority. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of tendency, but it can stand in the way of getting to an outcome that will have the best chance of being implemented by your nonprofit partner. So it can be helpful to just take a deep breath and aim to get to the root of a challenge so that you have all the context you need to make informed suggestions and prevent misalignment down the line in your collaboration. So ask open-ended questions to dig deeper. And one method that I always like to suggest to get to the source of a problem quickly and easily, some of you might have heard of, is the 5 whys. This is a popular and easy to use research method. So if some of you are familiar with design thinking, this is kind of a highly utilized framework in that kind of realm, and it helps you uncover motivations, assumptions, and the underpinning behavior behind kind of some of the actions that are being taken. And to use this method, you want to start with a broad question like, what prompted you to seek support from a pro bono consultant on this specific area, the skill area that you're offering? And then follow it up by asking a series of why questions to give time, space, and permission to go a little bit deeper, while also giving you the chance to gain some valuable insights. So you're kind of hitting at 2 things at once by building that rapport, but also getting to that root of the challenge. This is also a method to help you get in the habit of active listening. And these two together really set that foundation to lean into making consensus-driven decisions, which involve everyone in the process, and again, making it more likely that your pro bono work will actually be able to be actioned by your partner. And moving into our next tip here, kind of along the same lines of the partnership and the trust and collaboration, we really want to encourage you to involve your nonprofit partner in that decision-making process. So again, getting to that striving for consensus-driven decisions. Co-creation is really crucial to building buy-in and sustainability. And this co-creation allows you to design solutions with input so that your nonprofit partner and their staff will be able to maintain and adapt them. Make sure you invite the nonprofit to the process and bring ideas that your nonprofit partner can react to rather than just presenting them with a final product. And sharing these in-progress thoughts can be challenging. I'm definitely a perfectionist at heart, so I can understand the hesitancy to want to bring something that isn't fully formalized. But this really is crucial to allowing for in-progress feedback. And this will make sure that the solutions you offer or create fit the nonprofit's needs and context. And bonus, again, it will save you some time in the end so you don't have to redo the work as you go. And at the end of the day, the goal here is lasting impact. So we're not looking for just quick fixes, and this focus on solutions is really what will lead to that sustainable improvement for the organizations you're working with. And we focused quite a bit on that collaboration and building consensus, but it isn't really possible to truly achieve these without this tip here, which is to remember to be direct about your needs and recommendations throughout the process. I was recently reminded of Brene Brown's message in Dare to Lead that clear is kind. And collaboration doesn't mean beating around the bush or prioritizing comfort over brave honesty. Our culture has a bias towards nice and polite, which lends itself really well to getting along, and really is a backbone of our society. But it often kind of leads us to forget that the greatest learning is on the other side of some hard conversations. So definitely don't be afraid to share some hard truths, even when it's uncomfortable, and really be honest about the expertise you're bringing to the table. If you have feedback, it's important to give. It's important to give it. Don't shy away from that. And when hard conversations are needed, it can also be helpful to kind of ground yourself back in that goal of supporting nonprofits in order to increase their capacity to serve their communities. And this includes enforcing, reassessing, and communicating your own boundaries throughout the process. So, not just with your feedback, but also if you need more communication or if you need some time to do something else, make sure you're communicating that throughout as well. And just to give you a little bit more detail into what that feedback might look like, we wanted to highlight what good feedback does look like. So it comes in the form of those open-ended questions rather than jumping straight to solutions. It addresses things that can be changed, improved, and adapted. You can pull in, perspectives and best practices to kind of support the reasoning behind the feedback you're giving. And it also should be, shared for consideration rather than just kind of realizing the feedback and then taking it in your own direction. So these are some of the practices we recommend including in your clear as kind communication. All right, and for our final tip here, to end on a little bit of a high note, which is one of our kind of favorite things to mention in these conversations, is our golden rule for pro bono, which is to treat skills-based volunteering like paid work. So we ask our nonprofits to treat you like you're a paid client or a paid paid vendor, I guess, and we ask them to ask you to treat them like you're working for a paid client. So this kind of, the golden rule of like give what you get, kind of in this treat people like you wanted to be treated there. Really the underpinning is the professionalism and commitment on both ends of the partnership, and that's what makes it functional. And pro bono projects, while they are free by nature, and intentionally so, they deserve the same respect as a paying client. So, leaning into all your best practices around supporting folks that you would in your day job, definitely don't want to let those slide here in your pro bono work. So now that we've shared some general tips there, I wanted to move us into our part 2 and discuss some best practices for project management at each phase of the Taproot Plus process. So I wanted to kind of share first, if you've attended an office hour recently, or I think it was in the webinar in August, if you've taken a look at some of our resources, you might be familiar with this flowchart. But this is really a visual representation of the journey you take as a volunteer on Taproot Plus after creating an account. And I won't go into too much detail during our conversation today about the specifics of each phase, but really wanted to kind of provide some high-level best practices for some specific phases that are really crucial to setting your project up for success. But if you are interested in learning a little bit more about the 101 of Taproot Plus, or the basics, we do host a monthly office hour where we really dig into this process. So if you want to join us for that, you're always welcome. And of course, we can answer any specific questions about process as well. But for now, I wanted to zoom into some key parts of this process, and again, highlight those best practices that you'll want to consider. You'll notice that this flow distinguishes between projects and sessions, kind of where that check mark is. Um, and these are our two ways to engage in pro bono on Taproot Plus. Since we're discussing project management in this portion of our conversation, we'll mostly focus on the project flow, which extends beyond that 30-minute interview. But that's just something to keep in mind, that there is a kind of a shorter term option there that just involves a 1-hour consultation session. But moving us into some of the like key phases here, the first one I wanted to highlight is that application. So before a project even begins, you're already setting the tone for your collaboration with your project application. So on Taproot Plus, the first step in sharing your interest in connecting and collaborating with a nonprofit is through this application. And your application will include a statement of interest. And so it might seem like this doesn't contribute to the success of your overall project, but it's the first time that the nonprofit is encountering you. So there's some kind of undertones and ways that you can work through this statement of interest that really can help set you up in the future stages. And I know I just mentioned that we'll be focusing on projects for this portion of the conversation, but this is the one exception because you have to fill out an application for both projects and sessions. So these best practices for applications can be carried out both for projects and sessions, and this is a really crucial stage that's often overlooked, but can be play a huge role in laying that foundation of trust and connection. So your statement of interest is really your opportunity to share more about yourself, your expertise, and your motivation for collaborating on a specific pro bono opportunity. It's not an exact science, obviously, and it's not intended to be a barrier to connecting, but really a strong statement of interest can help the nonprofit see who you are beyond your credentials, your resume, or your skills that are in your profile. And it paints a personal picture of who you are. It allows them to see into your motivation and maybe why you want to contribute to their project specifically. And a strong statement of interest can kind of go a long way to putting your best foot forward. And it's a small investment at the beginning of an engagement that can really make a huge difference in the long run. And when it comes to writing these statements of interest, we're not looking at building, like a whole page or a letter of kind of intent here. We just want to have kind of a short 3 to 5 sentence statement. And I've put together this kind of framework, which you're seeing, or formula, which you're seeing on the slide here. And this is just kind of a general outline of what you might consider including in your statement of interest. So you want to keep it pretty short, 3 to 5 sentences, and you want to start with a clear expression of enthusiasm for for the nonprofit's mission and the specific project or session that is outlined in what you're applying to. In your second sentence, briefly describe your relevant professional background or skills that might kind of give your elevator pitch there, that might contribute to helping their project or make you unique to supporting them. In the third sentence, I recommend highlighting maybe a specific experience or accomplishment that demonstrates your ability there to contribute. And then, you can call it there, but if you want to really add a little bit more context, you can share a little bit about what you're hoping to gain or learn from the experience. Again, rooting it in that kind of mutuality, thinking about what are the things that you're hoping to get, as well as you're offering your expertise. And if you needed to put a little cherry on top, there is another optional sentence to just kind of tie it all together, reaffirm your commitment or excitement to support the organization. And kind of, again, this short little paragraph might seem like something to just glaze past, but it can kind of really play a huge role in getting you set up for the future of your collaboration. It sets you up for that rapport building. The next kind of stage of the process that I wanted to highlight is the interview. The scheduling is something that kind of happens more on the back end, so I didn't want to spend too much time digging into that. But after you have made that connection for projects, you'll have a 30-minute interview. Um, and this is another key phase in the kind of flow of your project management and engagement with your nonprofit partner. Interview might sound a little intimidating, but it's not really a traditional interview in the sense of like you're trying to prove yourself and the end goal is to kind of get the job. The goal here is to find the right fit. So it's more about assessing kind of if they're ready, if it's a good opportunity for you, given your needs and your time. And it's also an opportunity to continue that rapport building that you started in your statement of interest. So, in line with our theme of partnership and two-way learning, this interview is really intended to be more of a dialogue to get to know the nonprofit better, and assess if the project again is that right fit for your goals and needs, and also allows the nonprofit to do the same, just to get to know you a little bit better and see if you're the right fit for them. Prior to this call, it's important to kind of do a little bit of background research. So visit the organization's website, take a look at anything that's posted in terms of PR, if there's an article about them. If there isn't, doing a little bit more research into the cause area that they're connected with or the community they serve can kind of help you have the context to enter into this conversation. It can also be helpful to take another look at their project and just jot down anything specific that you would want clarification on or any questions you would want to ask about the project specifically. This call is really a chance to see if, again, this is the right fit for both of you. And it's okay if it's not. And I think that's important to also state is the process of kind of working through their project and getting to know each other might uncover some other aspects of work that maybe need to be done first. And I think this is really, really valuable feedback to have. So it's definitely okay to end an interview and not decide to move forward with each other. And if that's the case, I'd encourage you to not be discouraged. Continue searching for opportunities. There's definitely a good fit out there, and the interview is still really valuable, regardless of that outcome of the match. But some things to keep in mind for this call, kind of beyond that prep, is we've kind of listed out some buckets of questions that we encourage you to ask during the interview. So you've done your research, but it might be helpful to hear a little bit from the nonprofit, from their own voice about what their mission is and who they serve. You might ask them what their current strategic priorities or challenges are, just to get a better sense of where they're at. You might consider asking about how their team is structured. Some of the nonprofits we work with are all volunteer-led, so they might not have paid staff. Some of them we have varying sizes, and that lends to different types of capacity. So that can be helpful context as you're starting out your partnership or potential partnership at this point. Another bucket is kind of exploring those needs and opportunities. So really allowing them the space to ask about allowing them the space to tell you about the project, and allowing you the space to ask questions. You can ask, what are they seeking support for? This is a great place for that 5 whys conversation, kind of getting a little bit deeper to why they're trying to address this challenge at this time. This could be a space to ask them what's worked well in the past as they've worked with volunteers. Have they worked with volunteers like this in the past? And those can be kind of some cues into talking about how to prepare for success there. It's also important to just name, like, what does success look like for this? We have a process of reviewing the projects that come through on the Taproot side. So we know that they have a problem statement. There's kind of some context in those descriptions, but we also encourage you to ask about what that success looks like explicitly and give them the chance to provide some of their own qualitative kind of feedback about what that project looks like to them. And then again, assessing that readiness and fit, asking questions around, do they have the time and capacity to collaborate on this project? Are there any constraints to consider? How do they prefer to kind of communicate and make decisions? And these are some high level questions that uh, might take more than just the 30 minutes to engage in, and they might carry over into the next phase as well. But it can be helpful to bring in some of these questions to see if it is a good opportunity for you to continue to pursuing. Um, Always clarifying expectations. We talked about that communication throughout. And so it can be helpful to ask them what kind of working relationship they're hoping for, and how they envision kind of sustaining that work after the engagement. And this is something, you always talk about how will this be implemented from the beginning so that you can keep that in mind throughout the building of it, and really maximize the success of the deliverable. And then there's also kind of, we want to provide some space for reflection for you. This might happen outside of the interview, but really encourage volunteers to take some time after they connect with a nonprofit to think about their own, again, needs in terms of the partnership. Can you realistically support their needs with your time and expertise? Do you feel energized by their mission and team? Is it something that will fill your cup by committing some extra time to? And then also kind of thinking more of that tactical, is the scope something that's manageable? Do you need to go back and ask some clarifying questions about the project scope? And those are things that can be really helpful to think for yourself in terms of what you want to take forward, and if you want to continue with a match. Okay, so that is our interview phase, and we kind of move next into this project kickoff, which is a little less formalized on the Taproot Plus platform, but it's really an important aspect of getting into the work and setting yourself up for success. And this comes after the interview. So if you and the nonprofit have decided that there is a good fit and you do want to pursue a partnership, and there's a match there, then you'll enter this project kickoff phase, where you might kind of get at some of those same questions that we just kind of talked about in the interview, but you'll dig a little bit deeper and also think about how you can action some of what you've talked about. What are some of the tactical things that need to happen in order to get things moving? And the project kickoff phase is really where you'll mark the official start of your partnership. And we really want to make sure that we distinguish between the interview and the kickoff, even though there might be some overlap between the two because the goals are different. This is the phase where you move beyond getting to know each other, while some of that might still be happening, to really clarifying that scope, and how you'll actually achieve it. So getting a little bit more specific, this kickoff it can be a meeting. If you could do it asynchronously, that's also fine. But it really does mark that official start of your partnership. And the purpose here is to align on expectations, set communication norms, and create a work plan that you can carry forward into the actual execution of the project. And this is what the infrastructure to keeping you on track to actually achieving what the project described. So this is your chance to continue building that rapport. That's something that happens. Hopefully you're seeing that theme happens at every stage in the process. But it also allows you to continue that conversation of clarifying what success looks like. And then really this phase is about committing to how you'll work together. And a strong kickoff really lays that foundation for a smooth collaborative project journey. So the goals here are to build mutual understanding of the challenge and the proposed solution. You want to clarify the scope, what specific activities are in and out of scope, define success criteria, and establish your communication preferences and expectations. And then also a successful outcome of a kickoff is a draft of a work plan that identifies those first big milestones, and can kind of set you set up your roadmap for working together. And I wanted to share a few resources that can kind of help you achieve those goals. And again, we'll be sharing this out so you'll have access to these in the future, and you can always watch it back. But for this first one, we'd mentioned that goal of clarifying scope, what's in and what's out. So this is kind of a sample scope template of what you can kind of put down as a reference for both of you and the nonprofit partners. So as you continue to work, you can kind of come back to this and say, remember, we had this conversation where we refined from your initial project description down into what is in and out of scope, and clarified those deliverables. So this is kind of, it can be a living document, but it's really helpful to really clarify that expectation up front, and refer back to as you continue your collaboration. So our project, you want to start with a project challenge. And this is your starting point because it's the description that you applied to and the description that the nonprofit initially wrote. So really, what is the organizational challenge or opportunity that's being addressed? And you'll want to write that out in the words of the nonprofit, kind of collaborate on really nailing that down. Then you'll work to refine the scope. So what activities will be completed during this project and what activities will not be completed during this project. Sorry for that typo there. We'll fix that. And you might think that it's kind of unimportant to outline what's explicitly what's not in the scope, but this can be a really helpful step in clarifying what your boundaries are, and kind of setting that up from the beginning, because there's probably many things that this project could turn into, and so having this kind of laid out from the start can be really helpful to keep you kind of focused on that end goal. And then you'll want to outline what those deliverables are. So based on what's in the scope, what are we actually working to implement? And again, coming back to that question of what does success look like? You can kind of use this sentence starter. We'll know that the project has been successfully completed when, and that can give you kind of a guide to getting at that answer of what success looks like. And I also wanted to share kind of a template for outlining your communication preferences. Again, with that undertone of trust and connection here, communication is super important at every stage. And it's really helpful in the kickoff to really outline who will you be working with, how often you'll be meeting, what you'll use to meet, just really like put this all out in the open so that there's not any kind of misalignment or misunderstanding when it comes to when we're meeting or how we're sharing things. And you can obviously, adapt this, make it your own, but these are some of the things that we feel are most important to bring into that preferences conversation. And the last resource I wanted to share on this kind of kickoff phase was this work plan template. So we talked about the end of the kickoff being this as the outcome. We want to have kind of a template of where we're going and that roadmap of how we're going to achieve it. You've done all this great work to get to the meat of what are we doing here, and this is how you kind of lay out the timeline and the responsibility and tasks needed to keep it moving forward. So it's pretty standard, and kind of has those deliverables. It highlights the responsibility. So if you're waiting for the nonprofit to do something, this is a great place to have that outlined. If something's all on you, that's great. This can be helpful to put like, this will be the week I need feedback on that like first draft or something like that. And it can be helpful to kind of outline the phases of your project there. Keep track of your journey together. So moving into our kind of last phase that I wanted to highlight here, again, lots of foundation building. Rome wasn't built in a day. There's lots of process behind this to really make sure that before you even get to the execution and implementation piece, that there's the right infrastructure in place. So now you have the cadence of check-ins, you have your feedback styles clarified, and you've reached kind of this last phase that we'll cover today, which is the actual execution and debrief. And so this is where you'll actually get the work done. You'll action the plan that you've put in place. And so we wanted to kind of highlight some things to consider in this phase as you're actually carrying out the work. So first here, we're just highlighting these best practices. During your collaboration, again, that focus on communication is really key. So involving feedback at every stage, being able to bring in expertise from their team, bring in different kind of stakeholders to make sure that you're getting that consensus that continues into this execution. And you want to make sure that you're following the plan that you created, but also if things need to change, making sure you communicate that. And that's really the key focus of your execution. This is where you might be working more independently. You will probably be just leaning into your check-ins. You probably will be working on the actual, like, what am I delivering at the end? And so that communication is really the touch point to keep in mind during your execution. Following the execution, we encourage you to have a debrief and really make sure that if there's a training that's needed to help onboard the nonprofit to the work that you've done and really be able to utilize it, it's important to keep that in mind. Again, thinking of that, what does success look like? By asking that question at the beginning, you're able to think about, okay, what do I need to do in order to pass this along and really have it be implemented by the nonprofit? And so the key here is to think about that change management piece. What knowledge needs to be transferred onto the nonprofit partner in order, and hopefully you kind of have done this a little bit throughout, but what documentation and things in place need to exist in order for a smooth transition to them taking it over. And that's really what that debrief is about. And then once you've kind of reached that, you're at the end. You'll mark your project complete. But we really like the ghost phase is that celebration piece. You've accomplished a lot at this point. There's many phases, and you've been working hard and collaborating to get things done. And so we kind of want to highlight that there's this opportunity for celebration at the end of all of this hard work. And there's many ways that you could kind of enter this, but we wanted to kind of just spend some time on this unofficial last phase to celebrate your partnership. You've worked together, built relationships. You might feel connected to the nonprofit at this point. And we were looking at some internal metrics earlier this morning, and we looked at our post-program survey, and about 60% of our volunteers report that they continue to work in some capacity with their nonprofit partner. And so it kind of becomes this wonderful entry point into a relationship that might go beyond. So celebrating that work you've done together to help mark the end point of the project work can be really helpful. And there are many ways that you can do this, but we just wanted to kind of to end on a high note, highlight some of the ways that you can celebrate with your nonprofit. And obviously you want to kind of, again, collaborate with them to make sure that you're addressing the celebration in the way that they want to be celebrated. But some of the things that you could do, you could share the story of the work that you've done together. Write a short LinkedIn post or blog highlighting the nonprofit's mission and the impact of the project, and tag that nonprofit. Nonprofits are eager for visibility, and this sharing with your network is a way to expand their reach as well. It can be a great way to celebrate the work you've done together. You might want to host a virtual wrap-up. So you do that kind of debrief in whatever format works for you. But if that looks like hosting a call where you walk through what you did, and also kind of have this like celebration with the nonprofit team you worked with, that can be really beautiful. Share your learnings and invite them to share how the project helped them. It's also a great place to express that gratitude for partnership. You might consider giving the public kudos. So if you shared on your LinkedIn, that's one format of doing this, but you could also kind of look for opportunities to share the nonprofit's work in your network, or with if you're in a company, it can be a great way to kind of amplify their work again, and celebrate their collaboration, expanding that pro bono movement, bringing more people into it with the excitement of your experience. And then kind of the last one we want to highlight is keep that connection alive. Again, the number of volunteers that report continuing to work with nonprofits is really astounding, and it's really, really cool to see how the relationship you build continues to grow. So follow the nonprofit on social media, engage with their posts, share their campaigns with your network. And if it leads to future projects, we're happy to support that through Taproot Plus as well. So if you wanted to kind of facilitate it through our platform, you can always reach out to us, and we'd love to celebrate that continued partnership and lasting impact. So just kind of wanted like a fun little ending, that bonus phase here, highlight some of those ways that you can celebrate each other. But before we switch gears into Q&A, I just wanted to bring us back to the most important takeaway from today. The key to pro bono is relationships, and being intentional about your engagement at every stage. The intentionality is what sets the foundation of trust that's needed for success, and to achieve a project outcome that will be easily implemented in the nonprofit you're working with. So I threw a lot of information at you during our conversation, but it really does boil down to kind of these three pillars here of trust, clarity, that clear communication, and mutual respect. And if you're striving to achieve a balance between these three, you're really on track to make the most of your partnership and maximize your impact as a volunteer. So definitely lean into your relationship building skills, and that rapport. And that kind of brings us to switching here into our Q&A portion. Kristen has been sharing some questions with me throughout, so I'll start there. If we don't get to your question during our conversation today, we'll do our best to reach out to you directly and answer it to you specifically. But the first question that was called out to me is there a recommended AI prompt to use to get information about the organization before the interview? This is a great question. I would have to give it a little bit more thought in terms of what the prompt might read as. But I think similar to kind of a good old-fashioned Google. It's kind of funny to hear that at this point that's a old-fashioned, but kind of utilizing it to just if there's any sources that it can pull together. I think if you ask, like, tell me, I've heard recently that one of the best ways to utilize AI is to tell it that it has a role, and so kind of mimic what you're doing as a volunteer. Say like you're a pro bono consultant who's about to go into an interview session with a potential nonprofit partner at this organization. What do I need to know before I enter this conversation? I think I would kind of start there and think about like asking it what's the most important thing to know about this organization, and it will pull sources. Something to consider, and when it comes to the nonprofits in our network, a lot of them are relatively small, and some of them might not have websites yet, and then that might be why they're coming to Taproot, is to help them build out their website. And so it can sometimes be hard to source information about the nonprofit specifically if they don't have one. Their mission will be in the project description, and you'll be able to access that through your dashboard. So you'll have some background information. And if it does come up that you're not able to kind of look deeper into their website, you can definitely ask more about that mission area. So if they're serving individuals experiencing homelessness. You might ask a specific question to AI about, help fill me in on what I need to know about individuals or nonprofits who serve individuals experiencing homelessness. And that can be another way to kind of get at that information before that interview. That's a really great question. It got my gears turning on the prompt there. Another question we've had is, does anyone have ideas of how to do pro bono work on the technical aspect of projects? I do GIS, data analytics, and environmental engineering. This is an interesting question, and I might follow up. We have our chat saved, so I might follow up with this attendee specifically. But I think when it comes to the technical aspect, a lot of the projects, like, you might start with an audit, specifically like looking at website design projects, or if you're building out like an infrastructure, a tech infrastructure for an organization. A lot of them will start with just better understanding the needs, and then building the architecture beyond that. And so that really goes back to what we discussed about that root cause analysis, and kind of going beyond, that I need this CRM platform built for me, or this database built for me. Kind of getting at it from a different angle of motivation, and kind of what are the needs here? What do you have information already? I think that's the angle that I would start with. And a lot of those projects will then lead into that technical work. So we talked about like continued engagement. That might be an area where there would be a second phase of that project. The challenge here might be that sometimes nonprofits don't have that expertise of what do I need that is a technical need. And so kind of starting with those sessions of getting the brainstorming experience, or understanding what they might even be looking for before going into that project. So if you're able to provide that background help, I think that could be a really helpful way to get into some of those technical projects. Another question: if more than 2 or 3 people have applied for an opportunity, how do you determine who will interview with them or with the nonprofit? Does the nonprofit see all the applications and choose who they'd like to meet? This is a great question, and it is an important clarification on my end. So Taproot serves as the intermediary, which means that we're connecting you to the nonprofit. And while we're here for support and kind of to help facilitate those best practices, ultimately, when it comes down to the actual connection, it's between you and the nonprofit to kind of facilitate the project management there. And so on that note, nonprofits do get notified of every application that they have for a project, and they are able to see all of the applications. And so they might choose to meet with someone over someone else. And again, this is, I wouldn't want you to be discouraged if you didn't get scheduled as a call. There's lots of need out there, and I'm sure the best fit opportunity will come through. But I also think it can be helpful to really, follow that formula from the application statement of interest, because that can be helpful to get you started and in the door there. And if you have a specific concern about not hearing back from a nonprofit, you can always reach out to our help desk, which is an email on the screen here, or myself, and we're happy to help. Another question: is there a typical range of hours or weeks for the majority of Taproot projects? And yes, this is great. So our projects, we expect them not to go beyond 12 weeks. So they can be anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks. And we send biweekly like project check-in emails just to assess where you're at with the project there. And so that can be kind of helpful to keep you on track as well. And we don't anticipate that projects are more than 3 to 5 hours of your time per week. So that's they'll vary, and you'll come to that decision with the nonprofit ultimately. But that's kind of our general guidance on the range of projects. And then we had a question about Taproot's kind of service areas. So at this time, given kind of our privacy and our budget capacity, we are we allow users from the US, the UK, the EU, Canada, and India. That's where we're able to kind of protect folks in our terms of conditions at this point in time. We're always open to expanding as the opportunity presents to us. But if you've run into a roadblock based on your location, that's because we're limited to the regions that we support at this time. But we always recommend, we're close friends with Volunteer Match. And if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity near you, they can be another kind of source for finding volunteer opportunities outside of our geographic locations. And I'm looking also at the pre-submitted questions. We're getting to, we have about 4 minutes left. So if there's any other questions, make sure you drop them in here. And as those final kind of questions and thoughts come in, I'll just kind of transition us into our last slide. Sorry, my closed captions were covering it. I wanted to just kind of highlight a next opportunity to be involved. And we have an upcoming event after Thanksgiving here. Taproot runs a volunteerism campaign every year around Giving Tuesday because we recognize, it's a great mobilization for financial capacity, but it can also be a great mobilization for volunteers. So if you're looking to get some support on matching or getting connected with specific opportunities that are a good fit for you, definitely encourage you to register and to join us on December 2nd. And so grateful to everyone joining today. It's been a pleasure to share this hour with you, and hopefully it gave you just a little bit more information about pro bono partnerships. Again, my door is always open, so you're welcome to email me or email the help desk at any time, and we're really here to support you. But excited to see you all on the platform. And I'll be on for a couple minutes still here if there's any lingering questions. Lisa, yes, the recording will be sent out likely by the end of the day on Monday. We'll send there'll be a follow-up email. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through, so I'll go ahead and end it here. Again, if you need anything, we're here for you. Feel free to reach out. Thanks all.